What is up, guys, and welcome to another Project Boro podcast, the monthly podcast, of course, where we will be looking back at Middlesbrough's very, very interesting and eventful October, which ended up, of course, being far more eventful, probably off the pitch than what it was on the pitch. Me and Chris are here as we are every month to discuss it, but we are extremely lucky to be joined by a very special guest this month, and it is Rob Law from BBC Radio T's Sport. Rob, thanks for jumping on. How are you doing, mate? I'm sure. I mean, you've had a stressful time as it is chasing Hartlepool in recent months, but Boro have sort of challenged that. How are you doing, mate? Thanks for jumping on.
No, thank you for having me. Live covering Hartlepool, it certainly prepares you for these things. So it's been all right. Yeah, we were talking just before we started recording, saying that this is, for us, these are the times you really earn your corn and sort of put the graft in and that sort of thing. And these are the moments, albeit not these exact moments and these exact circumstances, but these are the reasons you do it for, is to cover the big stories and do it justice and try to, try and give fans and give everybody a platform to have their say on their team. And it's all been good fun, hectic but good fun. Wouldn't change it for the world, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. We are going to get into a lot of stuff, of course. Me and Chris did a podcast last week following the initial sort of breaking news on Rob Edwards. And a big thank you to everyone who checked that out. It went absolutely bananas. Highest viewed pod by a country mile. So we're not going to run over the whole thing, but we are going to touch down on what has happened since then, because there have been further developments, as well as a line that has seemingly been drawn under that today with the official confirmation, of course, that Rob Edwards has now, thank God, left Middlesbrough. So we will get into all of that good stuff, and we will ask Rob about his thoughts on that from not only a fans, but a broadcasting point of view as well. But as we always do with our monthly podcasts, we will look back at the month that was. And as always, me and Chris always put our necks on the block and predict the upcoming Boro results. Ironically, last month, we predicted every result exactly the same. Every result, every fixture to a T, didn't we, Chris? We both said 10 points. Boro actually, just about in the end, overperformed, which they don't normally do when we predict. And they come out of the last 6 games with 11 points, and that's almost 2 points a game, which, considering the performances, is quite a good tally. So before we jump in and ask Rob about, I guess, the overall season, Chris, just chat to me about the last block of games for Boro. It was weird, wasn't it? Poor performances, but the points tally, you come out of it pretty happy, don't you?
Yeah, the start to the predictions that we made was certainly a lot better than my Luke Halen flag there. It's been up there for 3 hours, and the moment you press record, my daughter's Luke Halen flag just tumbles off the TV.
Didn't even notice that.
Hopefully it's not a sign of things to come here. But it got off to a great start, didn't it? We both predicted that we'd lose to Ipswich. So for us to win that game against a side who have underperformed, but I still think will be right in the promotion mix, was very pleasing. They were at Sheffield Wednesday. Let's be honest, we all expected to win that game given the circumstances, but Boro being Boro, you never quite know. We made hard work of it, but got there in the end. And at this point, Paul, who I think is one of our regular viewers, was giving me stick on Twitter that my prediction of 10 points was looking a bit feeble. We'd already picked up 6 points, so I predicted 10. So yeah, it was looking like I underestimated us again. But then came the Watford game. I didn't think we played that badly, but it was just, I thought our game plan was just awful. The fullbacks just got just pinging balls behind our fullbacks, exposed us with pace, got the ball in the box, and everything hit went in. It was just one of those games, wasn't it? Wrexham, I thought we were awful from start to finish. Hackney got us out of jail in the end with a header. And then Leicester, all three of us were there. Rob in the commentary box, obviously, for that one. I thought we did okay first half. Just nothing in the final third. Then came the penalty. I know me and you, Matt, we were sat close to each other. Couldn't believe it when it was given. Looking back at it, I could probably see why it was given, but yeah, one of those ones. Second half, I thought we were much better, but still just couldn't put the ball in the net. Just didn't have that little thing in the final third. And then my daughter's favourite player, and certainly my player of the season so far, Luke Ayling, having had an excellent performance at centre-half, just decided, you know what, I'm going to show these guys how it's done. 9 seconds of the game, popped up with a header, descending away, ended absolute raptures. That was such a great moment for both of us. It made the journey home so much easier because the journey there was just horrendous. And obviously the Birmingham game, the circumstances I'm sure we'll touch on. Just ridiculous, wasn't it? The circumstances we found ourselves in. I've never been to a game in my life where I've not had a clue who's going to be in the Boro dugout. And obviously around 1 p.m. it was confirmed it was Eddie Vardash. Just so proud of every single player, every member of staff. It would have been completely understandable if we'd lost that game, but we were absolutely superb. Everyone came out with that game in massive credit. To get the 3 points was just great. Big thanks to Eddie Vardash. He was an appointment that we were all excited by. So for him to get that was pleasing, and to him to be forced into the celebrations at the end, I'm sure it was outside of his comfort zone. But you know what? Yeah, fantastic. So pleased for him. I'm delighted that looks like he's staying. So we finished with 11 points, just 1 point above our predictions. I'm satisfied with that. I'm only ever disappointed if Boro underperform our predictions. So outperform even by points. I'll take that.
Yeah, up to second again, 29 points from 15. We're still just tracking under 2 points a game, which is automatic promotion form. And given some of the performances in that run, I was over the moon to come out of that with 11 points. I think we sort of started and ended on two really good highs. I thought the Ipswich performance was probably the best up until Birmingham, which was a different performance. It was a difficult performance to judge, really, given the circumstances. We say everything in between. I thought the performances were pretty bang average to poor, to be honest. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday, again, another unique situation in its own right, I guess, but we got the job done. Let's not forget as well, Joe Lumley should have been sent off in that game, so we might have had a penalty, might have been a much more comfortable victory than what it was in the end. And I think you can probably group the Wrexham, Watford, Leicester games together. I wouldn't say any of the three were particularly convincing, albeit Watford, everything they hit did go in. I thought their game plan was spot on. But the ongoing theme throughout all of them games was that we just did not look like scoring goals. And creativity, it looked like we'd fallen off a cliff. And I think it was starting to maybe feel like, okay, Boro maybe overperformed to start the season. We were coming on the edge of, fine margin games. We were coming on the right side of them, and maybe we were being ridiculously efficient in front of goal. That was starting to maybe flip the other way, and we weren't getting so lucky. But then the Birmingham game is its own thing, and we'll probably talk about that in its own sort of individual piece. But what are your thoughts on Boro's start to the season then, Rob? I mean, I guess we could look at the last 6 games, but as a whole, it's been an incredible start, hasn't it, regardless of circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat blurred a little bit now by what's happened, but if we can sort of like compartmentalize that for a little bit, I think, solid start. Obviously, historically Boro's best start to a season. So, it's hard to grumble with that. But I think throughout, and you both have touched upon it there, there's moments where you thought, there's something not quite right here. And it's a few lackluster performances, lack of creativity, obviously a lack of goals as well. And I agree with what you said. I think the Ipswich performance, I was at that game, and a brilliant performance, especially off the back of the defeat against Portsmouth, which everybody was rightly disappointed by, and felt like Boro should have put in a better showing there. Sheffield Wednesday, again, repeating what you've both said, but really difficult circumstances surrounding the game. A few questionable decisions in there. Myself and Neil Maddison were about 100 yards away from Joe Lumley diving in on Tommy Conway, and we could see that was a penalty, and the referee certainly had a much better view than we did. So surprised with that. I think there was a lot of people in the world of football as it followed. It became quite a big talking point. I think there was a lot of people that were surprised that wasn't a penalty. And then the draw against Wrexham, Boro just looked really tired. They just looked really fatigued, really flat, didn't get going. Okay, they got something from it, and people would argue that there's something to be said about that, getting something when you're not playing particularly well. And then Watford, again, I was there for that game, and I was really excited going into that, and I thought, oh, this is going to be, this is going to be a really good game, and it just, it was one of the hardest second halves, or one of the hardest halves of football I've had to commentate on, because 2-0 down by half time, you think, right, okay, next goal is huge. So you start the second half commentary and you're going, right, big second half now. What's going to happen? Rob Edwards' words still ringing in the ears of the players. Can Boro get the next goal? Then it makes it really interesting. Before the words even leave your mouth, Watford have a third, and you go, well, that's that then. What should we talk about for the rest of the second half? Oh, weather's pretty rubbish, isn't it? Yeah. So it was really, that was, I think, a warning sign, and certainly worried a lot of people. But then to go to Leicester to rescue a point from the jaws of defeat, good old Bill popping up at the back post. Great to see him get a goal. And again, Chris, agree with what you were saying. He's been phenomenal this season. And then it comes on to Saturday with everything that transpired over the last week. And for me, one of the best atmospheres at the Riverside that I've witnessed. And I was privileged enough to be touchline reporter for the Brighton game, the promotion season. And I remember being, at one point, Mark and Maddo throwing down to me and asking me about what was going on in the dugouts, which was sort of what I would explain at the time. And I remember the Brighton manager was trying to get his message onto the players, and the players couldn't hear him because the Riverside was that loud. And he was physically having to bellow and shout and repeat his message time and time. Players were having to come really close to him to try and get what he was saying tactically. That afternoon will live long in my memory forever, but so will Saturday, for so many different reasons, and the way the atmosphere sort of changed throughout the afternoon. We arrived at the game similar to, as Chris was describing, not really knowing who was going to be in the dugout. Had an idea, but it wasn't confirmed at that stage. And then, as it all came clear that Rob Edwards had been stood down, the atmosphere went from really flat, and I'll always stand outside the stadium for a little bit before walking in, walk through the Ayresome Park gates and into sort of the main reception. And around the fan zone, it was really flat, and you could just feel that sort of energy around the ground, the disappointment, the frustration, the anger, the questions, and the uncertainty. But then after the announcement, it sort of flipped the other way. And it was almost like, right, okay, well, we all know where we stand now. So now we're going to do this and show what Boro's really about. And that for me was, just, again, another atmosphere that will live long in my memory. It was incredible. And I think that epitomised, I said it on the radio this week, but that epitomised to me everything that people love about Middlesbrough as a football club, about a town, about a fan base, about the players. Everybody all on the same page and doing it not because of one man, but in spite of him, and that for me was huge, and again signified and magnified Middlesbrough as a hugely attractive proposition for whoever walks through the door next, and probably again highlights just what Rob Edwards has walked away from, and just how together and how unified and how resilient Middlesbrough have always been as a fan base, have always been as a football club, regardless of one man coming in for 4 months and beating the drum about family and unity. Didn't need that. It was already there before Rob Edwards was here, and it'll be here long after he's gone. And I think that was just a real, hopefully, a massive sort of flag in the ground moment for Middlesbrough this season.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I come away from Saturday feeling so immensely proud to be a Boro fan. I really did. There was a lot of additional factors that I think made it even more sweeter, like the goal scorers.
Yes,
Hayden Hackney,
yeah.
Dale Fry, and the fact that we held on in the second half with a back five that consisted of Sammy Silvera, a winger. You had Matt Target who went off injured, of course, as well. So young George McCormick come on for one of his very only senior championship appearances with half an hour left in a game like that. A red colour comes on, and I don't think he put a foot wrong. That was another lovely little sweet addition. You had Luke Ayling in the heart of it, a central midfielder at right centre back, and Callum Britton was the only one in place. I just felt it was just such a typical, and instead of saying typical Boro as in, oh, we've screwed something up typical, it was like a typically Teesside performance, and it made me really proud. And I thought, yeah, we've come out of this, and this is the ironic thing, given it was all what Edwards would preach of. We've actually came away from the whole situation more united than we were before. And as you said, I think in spite of him's the perfect word. And the banners were great, the chants were great. And I mean, I hope we can keep that going. And I thought that the night before the game, I was really hoping that we'd create a sort of us against the world siege mentality. And we had that on Saturday. I mean, even the referee I thought was against us at times. My God, I'm not going to get into that. But I do hope it's something we can bottle up and carry forward. And if the new manager can harness that as well, I mean, what a power that could be for the new manager to harness. I think we can now chat about, I was going to say the elephant in the room, but I wouldn't even call him an elephant. There's a couple of other animals I could probably, or rodents I could use to call him. Even since me and Chris podcasted last week, a lot has come out in regards to the Edwards situation. So Craig Johns put an article out on the Gazette detailing a few things. Apparently Rob Edwards reaffirmed his loyalty to Boro up until Thursday, even attended an MFC Foundation event that day, spoke to a national journalist, and once again put a very non-committal answer into his Boro future. Took training on Thursday as well. Boro remained confident he'd stay until Thursday night when Wolves made their approach. They pulled him into a meeting on Friday to discuss the approach when they finally found out that he did have concrete interest in the Wolves job. They reluctantly allowed him to speak to Wolves. I can imagine Steve Gibson and co were absolutely furious. Unbelievably, Edwards wanted to take the team, which I think just epitomizes the narcissism of the man. Thankfully, Gibson must have just laughed in his face and told him where to go. He didn't. His presser was cancelled. He was publicly stood down. And then, of course, Saturday, we spoke about the game. And today, and we were saying this before we come on air, Rob, I'm glad we've recorded now. They have finally drew a line under the Edwards saga. He has now gone to Wolves with Harry Watling, with Adi Vivesh staying at the club. Before I get your thoughts on the actual situation as a whole, Rob, because I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts from a broadcasting point of view. Boro's statement, I thought, was absolutely perfect. They said, Middlesbrough FC can confirm that Rob Edwards has now officially resigned his post as head coach after agreeing a contract with Wolves. Rob had signed a 3-year contract with ourselves during the summer, but after he made it clear he was keen to join Wolves, we reluctantly agreed a figure of compensation for both himself and one of his first team coaches, Harry Watling. On Saturday, the Riverside came together as one, players, staff and supporters, and you could feel the sense of unity which is at the core of our club. To everyone involved, we would like to say thank you. Adi Vivesh took charge of team affairs last Saturday and will continue to do so during the interim period. Let's stay together up the Boro. Not a single ounce of thanks to Rob Edwards, not a reference to him. Brilliant statement, perfect statement. Before we get Rob's thoughts on the whole saga, Chris, your thoughts on events that have happened since. I know we've obviously discussed the game, but there were a few details that came out previous to the game, which made me even more sort of annoyed. And then obviously today with the statement as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was just mental, wasn't it? We were sat in the pub before the game, just refreshing Twitter. I mean, who's taking this game? We all assumed it'd be 85 Ash, but we just didn't know. We just didn't know for sure what was going on. But there was rumours, is Adi going to go with him to Wolves? There was talk already of Harry Watling going there. But honestly, when that statement came through, that the line that he was willing to take the team for the game, my head was on Mars. It was just like, that must just be contractual. That said, well, I'm not withdrawing my labour from you. It must be. But then you say the absolute narcissism of the man. You just think, it's like your partner telling you that they're leaving you for an expo, but don't worry, I'll still come to your sister's wedding tomorrow as your +1. Thinking,
There's
what?
Mr. Analogies at it again.
I love Chris's analogies. I love them. They're brilliant.
They're the best.
What? Why? Why would I want you anywhere near me? Why would Steve Gibson want this man anywhere near the football club? But he's told us he's leaving. He wants to go somewhere else. Why would he do it? It's the whole thing. The whole thing was just crazy, wasn't it? From the very start, that Leicester one, the pre-Leicester press conference, when he was asked 3 times, and each time he gave a politician's answer, didn't he? There was loads of red flags there. The line about his daughter being his only source of information on it was just utter tosh. He used a similar line at the Meet the Staff event in July.
He did.
Someone asked him about when he knew he was going to get the Boro job, and he said that his daughter told him that he was in the running for that. He was. And I'm thinking, come on, mate. So you've had discussions before, then, haven't you? So at the time, I thought that was nonsense. So to use that line again, I'm thinking, come on. And then Scott from the Northern Echo, brilliant journalist, he called him out in that press conference. His BS detector was going through the roof, wasn't it? And he said to him, "What Chris Wilder has done this to Boro fans. We remember this," and he still was. Oh no! I'm only focused on this and blah blah blah, and yeah, it was all. I mean, there was still people arguing with us up until that press conference was cancelled. That he was loyal. His answer was perfect, and he was staying. And talking to Matt privately, we were both saying, "Well, hang on a minute. How can this press conference possibly go ahead if he walks into it and says, 'I love this club. I love Parmos. I'm staying.'" People are going to say, "Well, I'm going to make
proper love Parmos."
Why weren't you saying this before Wolves' offer was rejected? And then if he goes in and gives another politician's answer, he's knackered either way, isn't he? So that press conference was never going to go ahead. It couldn't have happened because he was just asking for trouble. And the fact that he was clearly back channeling with Wolves, and he couldn't even say to them, "Look, don't do anything yet. Just wait till the international break comes, and then
it's a 2-week break right there, isn't there?
2-week break
right there, on the eve of a game as well.
Yeah, it's just showed either him or Wolves gave a toss about Boro. So yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't know if it Rob as someone who was on the ground there. What did you think of his press conferences? Did you think he was sincere when he was answering those questions, or at the time, or did you think his offer to take the team was anything but just contractual?
I don't know about that. That line that came out, I think it was Ben Jacobs who reported it at the time, but there was a few who were saying, he was still open to taking the team or still wanted to take the team. I forget the exact phrasing around it, but it was around those kind of words, saying he wanted to take the team effectively. I have real question marks. I would like to, I would really like to delve into that sort of as a journalist is to go, well, where, and I know as journalists you don't reveal your sources, but I suspect that source is a source that is very close to Rob Edwards, which maybe is of the variety that is trying to at a time when his character and him as a person is being attacked from all sides. I wonder if that was a tactic in which of trying to save face a little bit.
Yeah,
wasn't throwing in the towel at all, or still dedicated to the cause and still wanted to take the team. And so I have real question marks over the sort of the validity of that particular line, over him still wanting to take training. But the whole, talking pre-Leicester, it was an interesting one because at the time when he said what he said, and my daughter told me, I didn't even know, and well, I have a job to do here. And I think, and Dom Shaw said it, we had him on the show and we were talking about it, that the very wording around it that he used before Leicester. And I know it's split opinion, and I think at the time Dom said it, and I agree with him. He said, I think at the time it was just about right. It was just about passable. It was just about okay. I think if he'd said any less, then the pressure really would have been on him at that point. Obviously, if he'd have said any more, then he shoots it down almost completely, doesn't he? So I think he walked the line just about as well as he could have at that point, knowing what we know now. Then Leicester happens, and everybody was so caught up with the manner of the result that for the more it got asked, but it wasn't the main topic of conversation. There was a lot of euphoria around what a result that is. Luke Ayling, how great he was, and that as just as a standalone moment. And then you get into sort of Thursday, Friday. Now, as things progressed, I think it is clear that at the start of the week, and I'd say this from a broadcaster's point of view, at the start of the week, even after what he said pre-Leicester, and again, it's easy to see it now and say, oh, well, the writing was on the wall, Rob. But still at that point, I wasn't exactly convinced that he was going to go. I started the week sort of being, okay, I can kind of see, but maybe there might be something in it. And then as the week progressed, it became more and more clear that, oh, no, actually, there is something more to this. And I think that was the same case for Middlesbrough as well. All week they had been, speaking with Rob Edwards and had those level of conversations of, no, I committed to the cause. Middlesbrough, great club, happy to be here, feel like the luckiest man in the world, whatever. He said to Mark Drury on BBC Radio T Sport at the start of the season, all those sorts of things. And then as a result, Middlesbrough knocking back the approach from Wolves. Such was the stance that Edwards had taken. Thank you, but no thank you. Off you go into the long grass, and away we go. Then Friday morning happens where he comes into the training ground and meets with the hierarchy, and that, by all intents and purposes, and you read all the reports and everything that's come out since, has the conversations with the hierarchy where they wanted some assurances over what was going on, what was being said, and what was being reported. And that, at that point, is when Rob Edwards finally conceded that he did want to speak to Wolves. And then it all unfolds, doesn't it? And it goes from there. Again, question marks over. I still want to do the press conference. I don't see how he could have taken that press conference.
No.
Because there is no... If he in his mind knows that he wants to go to Wolves and he's verbalised that to the Middlesbrough hierarchy, which is what we understand, how do you then go and face a press conference? It would have been a lamb to the slaughter. It would have been a car crash. Would he have even turned up? Would he have been there for it? In that case, you have a situation where you have the whole Northeast media. You will have some national media there as well, given the circumstances. And what if he no-shows? Then how does that look on Middlesbrough? And there's so many question marks around that press conference. And it was me due to go to the press conference on Friday. And I remember all Thursday I'd sat in our newsroom and sort of like closed everything off and sat and thought, right, how do we approach this? And I think any journalist, whether it's Scott Wilson from Northern Echo, you quite rightly said, brilliant journalist, Dom Shaw from the Northern Echo, brilliant journalist, Craig Johns, Mark Drury, Paul Addison, Matty Nixon, whoever, everyone will do this and they will sit and go, right, what do we need to ask? What do the fans want to know? What do we need answers to? And obviously this one was easier because there was the elephant, or whatever rodent you just choose to describe, is in the room, and it's the only question, isn't it? But it's then about trying to think 2-3 steps ahead of the person. So, right, if we ask him this and he says this, where do we go from there? And if he says this, where do we go from there? And it was a press conference where he could no longer play the line of, oh, my daughter told me, and I've only just found out. No, I don't know. It's a great club, and Wolves is close to my heart, but it's a project here at Middlesbrough I'm buying into. Like, it needed answers. It needed concrete answers. And I don't think any journalist worth their salt was heading into that press conference on Friday willing to, A, let him off lightly, 2, not ask the question. I think anybody would have. And 3, making sure that there was a definitive answer in that room at that time. Now then you fast forward to about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, I think it was, before the press conference, when we get word that the press conference had been cancelled. And then again, that opens up. Well, the writing was on the wall, really, at that point, wasn't it? Publicly, that's when everybody went, well, he's gone, hasn't he? And we got the word that he hadn't taken training. He'd met with the players, but didn't take training, left shortly after meeting the players. And this was after the conversation with the Boro hierarchy. And then everything follows in regards to the game on Saturday, who would be in the dugout. And the one thing I wanted to mention, I know there was a lot of frustration at the time over the length of time that Boro took to put out a statement in regards to who was going to be in the dugout. And the one thing I just wanted to point to was, so in Boro's statement, which they put out before the game, saying that Adi Vivash was going to take the game effectively and that Rob Edwards had been stood down, was the wording. I think there's a subtle tell in my job, or in broadcasting, it's not often the obvious thing that people say. Often you're reading between the lines. Often it's the things that people don't say, or it's the little things here and there that you kind of over time you put together and you go, okay. And Middlesbrough, in their statement initially, it said, Middlesbrough Football Club have, subject to the completion of an agreement with Wolverhampton Wanderers, given head coach Rob Edwards permission to speak to Wolves. That suggests that compensation at that point of that announcement still hadn't been finalised. And because it was a 3-year contract and he was only 4 months into it, and there was question marks over who he was going to take with him. Was it going to be Harry Watling? Was it going to be Adi Vivash? The complexities of that from a contract point of view are huge. And what Boro say about that, when there are legal ramifications, can also be huge. And it could weaken your hand at times. It could strengthen your hand at times, depending on what you say and how you say it. So Boro had to be bang on and very... every duck had to be in the row for Boro to release that statement. They had to be on solid footing with what they were saying. And I think that's perhaps where the delay comes from, getting that clarification with Wolves, or getting an understanding of what the agreement was going to be in terms of the compensation. And yeah, Adi Vivash steps in. I arrived, as I said earlier, at the Riverside not knowing who was going to be in the dugout, was up and down the West Stand like a yo-yo. Certainly got my steps in that day. Haven't been to the gym since because my hammies are still sore as anything. But yeah, up and down. And is anything yet? No. Okay, back up to the point where we broadcast from, keeping in touch with everything there, all while trying to focus on a commentary that you've got to do, team news that you've got to sort out, everything in between. And then the word came out, it was going to be Adi Vivash. And my question at the time to Boro was, well, who's doing the post-match press conference? Who are we going to interview afterwards? And it was very adamant, it's going to be Adi. He's like, right, okay, great. And credit to Middlesbrough, there was no pulling of punches in the sense of, be careful and what you ask and these sorts of things, which I know fans sometimes think there is a lot of in football, but there's surprisingly less than you would imagine. And I thought Adi Vivash gave one of the best post-match press conferences, interviews. I've worked on this sports desk here at Tees and privileged to do so for 11 seasons. It's my 11th season. And that was one of the most impressive press conferences or in post-match interviews that I've ever been a part of, and stood in front of the man while he's saying the words. And I came away from that and just went, wow, that was impressive, considering all the factors, everything he had to deal with, all the questions he had to field, the emotion around it, being careful at times in what he had to say, giving enough without maybe saying too much, and sort of drawing the curtain back too much. I think he left no sort of question over his stance and his feeling around what had happened in the last few days. And as a result, I think he only endeared himself even further to the Middlesbrough fans. Sorry, that was a hugely long answer, so I apologise.
It was a fantastic answer. It's great to hear it from a broadcaster's point of view, and I guess well, to both of you, and I'll start with Chris. There's been a lot of discussion this week on. There's been a lot of narrative I've seen. It's been on Sky Sports News. It's been on Talk Sport. I think Simon Jordan's been like an adopted Boro fan this week with some of the quotes he's been coming out with. It's been everywhere. Lots of different points of views on it. Is there any kind of any part of his motive, his reasoning that you can even remotely understand? Because I know there's a connection to Wolves, there's family, there's a lot of things that would obviously mean a lot to anybody. But the way I look at it, there's two reasons I have a huge problem with what he's done. The first is that he spent months preaching all these keywords: unity, togetherness, we're a family. I mean, I remember, he come out and not had a go at Borough fans, but he, stood up to Borough fans after Preston because of the Morgan Whittaker situation. And, we've got to be together. We've got to stick together. We're a family. He spoke to Drury, spoke to a number of... I love this football. I'm in love with these fans. It's my dream job and all this.
I feel like the luckiest man in the world were his words.
Yeah, there's another one.
In the very studio you're sat in.
Yeah. All them things that he said, I think he set himself up for scrutiny based off of that. And I don't know if that was because he was desperately trying to get fans on board, or again, it was his own narcissistic ego and he was just desperately trying to put himself over. But the other thing I don't understand is the distance and the family thing, because he's taking a job to which I think there is a strong possibility, well, there's almost an inevitability that Wolves will get relegated. He's left a championship club to probably join a upcoming championship club. And this idea that he's got to take this job now, it's his dream job. This will be a championship job in 12 months' time, I'm pretty sure. Why couldn't he have gave Boro a crack, committed to us even for a season? And if we get to the summer, you go, right, it's not worked. We're 10th, and we've not reached our goals. We're still a championship club next season. Wolves come down. I think fans would be a lot more understanding of, right, he's had a season here, it's not worked. He's tried, and he moves to Wolves next season. When they're a championship club, it's more of an understandable move. He's still in the same league. He's probably got his stock's risen a little bit. You get it. It's not like Wolves are going anywhere. And it's not like he's coming towards the end of his career. He's 42. I think there'd definitely be other times in his career where I think the Wolves job would have came up. So the fact that he's jumped at it now in the position they're in and the position Boro are in, I think is absolutely crazy. And even the family line, if he gets sacked in 12 months, he's going to be back on the road anyway, travelling to God knows where. We're not that far away. What if in 12 months he can't get a job because he's got another relegation on his CV? He's possibly been sacked. And the only job he can get is, I don't know, on the South Coast somewhere. And he's got to go and travel anyway. And he's got to, get back out there and travel and be away from his family. I feel like the decision he's made is so short-sighted. And I just think, given everything he said and everything he's done, as much as there are elements I can understand, I still just think the circumstances just don't line up. I mean, Chris, starting with you, is there any element of his motive that you can understand, or do you feel like it's just, it could be the right club, but it's just the completely wrong time, and he's disrespected a club that have gave him, took him off the scrap heap, a chairman who's one of the best in football, he's been backed in the summer, and I mean, he's possibly committed career suicide, hasn't he? And his reputation for loyalty could be in tatters if the Wolves job goes, wrong.
Yeah, I'm one of the thousands of Teessiders who quite often have to work away from home. So you'd think that I would be in full sympathy with the being close to your family thing. I mean, I've had to work away for a couple of years, thank God, but there's been plenty of times over the years where I've had to work away from home. And again, thousands of Teessiders who are in construction, petrochemical, they all have to work away from home. And I'll tell you now, it's for a fraction of the money that Rob Edwards is making. What will you earn? We don't know. £500,000, £750,000 a year. So I think he's very well recompensed there. And it's easy for people to go, if you're in that situation, you do the same. Well, I have been in a situation where I've been working away from home and I had offers to come back home, but I haven't taken them. Maybe that's me being stupid. But again, thousands of other Teessides have been in that same situation. But I wouldn't mind as much him doing what he's doing, because everyone's motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by family, some people are motivated by money, some people are motivated by just they want a job just down the road from where they live. That's fine. But what, as I touched on the last pod, what I resent about Rob Edwards is, if you're going to be a mercenary, if you're going to be a Sam Allardyce, and as I said last point, if Sam Allardyce comes to your football club, you know Sam Allardyce is there for the cash. He doesn't care if he gets paid off as long as he gets his cash. And Rob Edwards, for me, is no different to Sam Allardyce. The difference is the mask that Rob Edwards wears is one where he's a different. He's everyone's best friend. He's, I'm so lucky to be here. If he didn't come out with all those lines about I'm the luckiest bloke on earth, I pinch myself that I'm here, you guys are amazing, and all this kind of all the love bombing stuff he was doing at the start. If he hadn't come out with any of that, I think people would be giving them a much easier time than what they are now. They'd still be frustrated, but I don't think there'd be anywhere near the same level of venom as there is for when he's spouting we're family, unity, all this kind of stuff. He said very similar things at Forest Green. And again, last point, you look at the statement they put out afterwards, he screwed them over. And, no doubt he went and did the same things at Watford. And
he did.
I haven't seen his press conference yet, or whether he's done one with Wolves, but you were sat there with your bingo card, though, waiting for you. This is a massive club, or this is a special club. Yeah, I'm the luckiest bloke on earth. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's just, if you want to be what Rob Edwards is, where clearly, like I said, Forest Green absolutely screwed them over. The way he left a real sour taste. The way he's left, Boro's left a sour taste. Luton fans, I think, are a bit mixed on him. Watford fans aren't keen on him for various reasons. It's one of those where he's leaving a lot of clubs with a lot of bitterness behind, and I just think that eventually that's going to come back to bite him. And if that's how he wants to be, fine. If you want to be someone who's just motivated by money and you want to go to who's paying you the most money, there's nothing wrong with that. But just don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't pretend to be this loyal guy. You think the luckiest bloke on earth. You love everyone who's here, because it's just not true. And then when it all falls apart, when you leave, that's when the bitterness comes from. So yeah, for me, he needs to have a real look at himself and how he approaches the fans when he takes jobs in the future. Because, like I said, the way he's done it is just totally wrong.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. Do you have any sympathy? Can you see his point of view from where Rob Edwards is coming from, or do you feel like he has just made a bit of he'd maybe ruled heart over head and has took a real short term move that's probably not worth it?
I think, look, most people can. There's this one counter argument that I've seen online that's used against Boro fans since. And I've heard pundits say it, I've seen journalists say it, I've seen other fans from other fan bases say it to Boro fans. And it has been that line of, you do the same thing. If you've got a young family and if you're travelling up and down the country and you get offered to go home and you get to earn 4 times what you're earning now, you do it. And the thing with that, for me, is nobody, I don't think anybody is debating that. I think most people would go, granted, if you've been in a job X amount of years, you get the opportunity to go home, not talking about Rob Edwards, but in any walk of life, whatever your job is, fair enough. But this is a job that he was 4 months into off a 3-year contract, a contract that he signed, a contract that he was well aware of where Middlesbrough was geographically, a job that is renowned in the world of football for being a secure job. Steve Gibson is renowned in football for giving managers time. And we were doing the show earlier this week on BBC Radio T Sport, and there was the question mark of, if you are going to move your family, and I, again, understand there are loads of reasons why that is not possible. Kids in school, wife maybe has a job in the area, family in the area, all those sorts of things. Granted, and I take that on board. But if you are in the job that you are in, i.e. a football manager, moving around the country becomes almost paramount for the job, doesn't it? And Middlesbrough, one of the more stable jobs. If there is ever a job where you go, let's see how it goes, and then we could probably, if it's going well, we could probably commute there. Oh, sorry, we could probably move there. That is an option. As with Middlesbrough, probably more so than any other club in the country. There's maybe a few others that give clubs that give managers as much time as Steve Gibson gives here at Middlesbrough. The other thing is that, I'm not necessarily convinced by the argument that is, I heard somebody saying, he has to strike while the iron's hot. And I just wanted to scream into a pillow at that, because strike while the iron's hot. Okay, so let's dissect this a little bit. If the iron is hot right now, and the Wolves job comes up, this is a job that easily could have come up in 6 months' time, easily could have come up at the end of the season, most definitely would come up next season. This wasn't, it's now Rob or never.
Yeah.
And I remember, this is a tangent, so forgive me, but Ruben Amorim at Manchester United, and he joined the team in mid-season, and I remember one of the things he was asked about was any concerns about joining in the middle of the season, and he said, I said to them, I wanted to join in the summer, and they said to me, no, Ruben, it's now or never. If it's not now, we go and we get somebody else. We're not waiting. And he goes, okay, I'll come. And he goes, fair enough. That's not the case with Wolves. And I've got it up in front of me, right? So looking back at the last few managers. So obviously Nuno Espirito Santo was the longest serving. Most recently, he went from May of 2027. May of 2027 in the future. May of 2017 up until 2021, right? So he was there for a few years. Bruno Lage lasted just over a year. Then you had Julian Lopetegui, who lasted just under a year. Then you had Gary O'Neill, who lasted just over a year. Vitor Pereira didn't last 12 months. And then you're on to the appointment of Rob Edwards. So this is a job that was not now or never. It was not do or die. It was not your only chance. And it would have come along at some point. I suppose the counter argument to that is that, well, would his stock have been as high as it is now in a year's time, a year and a half time, whatever time period you want to put on it? He would probably argue that he could lose his next 10 games and be sacked, and then he's scratching around for another job. And that probably is also true, and that is the counter to the argument I've just put forward. So I don't think anybody is doubting the pull of being back home close to family. It's the fact that it happened 4 months into a 3-year contract. And while we're on, I've just seen that a statement from Rob Edwards has just dropped.
Live on air. Okay.
Which I can read to you now if you want it.
Let me guess. He wouldn't have left for any other club.
Should we get the bingo cards out now?
Okay, right. So you can, if I read it, then you can tick them off as we go.
Okay.
Rob Edwards, this is on his Instagram. This has been one of the toughest decisions of my career. In truth, I wouldn't consider leaving Middlesbrough for any other club. Wolves is a special club for me. It's where I grew as both a player and a coach. It's still where my family calls home. It has always been my dream to come back, and these opportunities do not come around too often. Middlesbrough is an incredible club with a fantastic owner, staff, and passionate supporters. I want to thank everyone at the club for the opportunity to lead this squad. It is a great group of players that I genuinely hope and believe will deliver success this season. I could not be prouder of the environment we built together and how it all gelled together so quickly. The players, the staff, and the fans who drive it all. I sincerely wish everyone at Middlesbrough all the very best for the rest of the season and beyond. Rob.
The well wishes are not reciprocated.
Certainly aren't. I think
does anything he said there change your mind? or change your opinion?
No, I just don't think anything he says. I don't believe a word he says anymore. I just don't think anything he says is genuine. I just probably think that's probably a Chat GPT sort of generated statement. Uh, Honestly, there's people who in the Boro group chats. I mean, there's people who loved Rob Edwards and who believed in him, and up until that press conference was cancelled, still thought he was staying. Who were questioning themselves afterwards, saying, "Was everything he said just a total lie? Was all that fist pump into the fans? Was that all genuine, or was that just performative?" And that's the problem, isn't it? When you love bomb people and you tell them that they're fantastic, they're brilliant, they're the best ever. I'm so lucky, blah blah blah, and then just 4 months later, you pull the rug from under them.
Mm-hmm.
They start questioning everything that you've said, everything you've done, and yeah, it's one of those where, yeah, I think this is a harsh lesson for him.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's people questioning how genuine he was when he said what he said. Did he mean what he said? What he was saying? And I think that's where people feel most aggrieved. Not the fact that he's necessarily leaving the
Yeah,
club. It's the circumstances surrounding it. I think, like, again, repeating myself, but people can buy into the fact that he's gone to be closer to family and all those sorts of things.
mm,
It's the fact that he said what he said and the strength of what he was saying so frequently, and the message that was always being driven home in a short
yeah.
space of time, to then leave in the manner that he has, I think is where everybody feels let down.
And that was it. No one was holding the gun to her head. No one forced him to say those things. And the fact he's got previous for it. I mean, so his family's his excuse this time. What was the excuse when he did the dirty on Forest Green? Got to Watford. The
The
first,
one
the
thing,
first, the first the Forest Green chairman knew that he'd got to Watford when it was announced to the media.
the one thing I will say, and look, I'm not in the business of fighting Rob Edwards' corner at all. It's probably a bad time to admit that my middle name is Edward. So it's oh dear. I'm not going to be using that anytime soon. So I think the Forest Green one is slightly different in the sense that he was there, he'd got them promoted, and then Watford come along, and that is a bigger leap, isn't it? That is,
Mhm.
the you can maybe understand that slightly more in the sense the fact that Forest Green in the National League get promoted, have this success with Rob Edwards, then Watford come in much higher up the football pyramid. The draw of that, and he goes, okay, great, and he goes to try it, albeit knowing far too well that Watford only ever really give managers around about 15 games on average, or whatever it might be. That is not the same situation at Middlesbrough, where Wolves are effectively 2 places above Middlesbrough in the football pyramid.
Yeah.
Boro sitting second and Wolves sitting rock bottom of the Premier League. So the situation there is different. And again, granted the pull of family and being closer to home and all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's
And that's it. Yeah, I think people would have forgave him for the Forest Green one, but it was
mm,
again, it was behind people. Their statement
yeah,
said negotiate
yeah,
behind our back. Didn't even tell us he was going, and it's
yeah.
again, it's the manner in which he's leaving these clubs. I think which is leaving a sour taste in people's mouths.
Mm.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's going to make it interesting going forward, actually, what Borough do and how not only how Steve Gibson approaches the next appointment, but how Borough fans will as well. Because we had an interesting chat about this on the breakdown at the weekend, and it was like we've had Michael Carrick, who maybe didn't say enough. We've had Rob Edwards, who's probably now said too much.
Far too much.
Is it best that we just have a manager who comes in and is just simply, I'm here to get results, to get this team promoted? They don't open up too much, but they're also not completely, guarded and don't really create a connection with fans at all. Because I do think that's important, and I think that's just from a fan point of view. Steve Gibson's trust will have been hurt massively by this, and he's now going to be probably second guessing his next appointment because I mean we almost had a similar thing with Wilder not too long ago, which scarred us for a long enough time. Hence where the PTSD came from the Leicester press conference last week. It was the alarm bells were ringing just off of the Wilder stuff. So this is
Mm.
going to live long in the memory of Borough fans, and it's going to live long in the memory of Steve Gibson, isn't it? Like what does he do now looking
Well,
forward to a manager?
I tell you what, one thing that is very apparent is Steve Gibson's strength of feeling in all of this, and I think the use of the word disappointed was perhaps the biggest understatement of 2025 so far. And we've only got about a month left to go of 2025, but he was as furious from the people that we've spoken to and reports we've read and whatnot, as annoyed as many people had seen him for a long time. And you can absolutely understand why, and I think that was reflected in the fan base's feeling as well. The one thing I will say, I think this will mean that whoever comes in, you can see Steve Gibson now absolutely throwing everything potentially at the next person who comes in, almost to prove a point. Do you know what I mean? Because
Hopefully.
he is a businessman. He is a successful businessman. He is a Boro man, and all those sorts of things. But the one thing he is not is a mug, and the one thing he it certainly does not like is for anybody to perhaps feel like they may have got one over on him in any way, shape, or form, or for his loyalty and his his loyalty and trust to have been in some way to be wronged in any way. I think, and I think this will be Steve Gibson having been right there in the decision making over who is going to be the next manager, obviously alongside Kieran Scott, who is the head of football. But I think Steve Gibson will have a big say, of course, alongside Kieran Scott as to who they do appoint and the backing that he will get and the support that he will get. The one thing I will say, and this may be a question, Matt, to you and to you as well, Chris, is from a fan base, and this is something I asked, I sort of put out there on Saturday ahead of the Birmingham game, which was, as fans now, I think this is probably, out of all the people who are going to maybe struggle with this going forward, I don't think it'll be Steve Gibson. I don't necessarily think it will be the manager who comes in, whoever that is. I think probably maybe the ones who struggle to stomach whatever happens next is maybe the fan base, in the sense of so many people bought into what Rob Edwards was saying. And let's not forget that that wasn't a universally approved appointment either. There was people who needed convincing over Rob Edwards,
Yeah.
and he did. And and he won people over with the words that he said and his actions and everything in between. And I just wonder, from a fan base now, will fans, or will there be an element of you that where you're almost a little bit more hesitant for whoever comes in the door now, to give them that trust and to give them that, not that level of support, because that'll be there regardless, as it always is, no matter who's the manager, but that level of affection and that level of trust as the manager, whoever walks in.
No, I agree. I think it'll be, unless the appointment is an extremely sentimental, Tony Mowbray, or I don't know, Gareth Southgate, maybe even.
A universally
Janino.
loved appointment.
Yeah, Janino, maybe. I just think it would have to take an incredibly sentimental appointment, and one that that person has such a deep-rooted connection with fans. Surely they wouldn't do something as similar as to what has happened. But I can't see that happening. I can't see that appointment happening, because the next appointment should absolutely not be based on sentiment. It should be based on getting the job done. And you make a very good point there, Rob. I've only sort of looked at, tried to put myself in Gibson's shoes a little bit, and I've only really thought of he's gonna, he might not trust the next guy. It might make his decision on who's next a little bit more difficult. But I absolutely hope, like you say, it's lit an absolute fire under Steve Gibson, because I feel like what happened on Saturday, I think it lit a fire under the whole club, because we just wanted to win that game in spite of Rob Edwards, as you say. And I hope that maybe this has lit a fire under Steve Gibson to, in spite of Rob Edwards, get promoted and maybe pass them on the way up as they come down. And if that's the case, the next manager is walking into a cauldron of just energy and optimism, and my next question was going to be on that. I don't know if you've got anything else, Chris, on sort of the Steve Gibson thing, but my next question to you both as well was going to be, how much. Obviously, we talked about the difficulties and the circumstances around this, but is this actually a huge blessing in disguise? Because let's not pretend results were all right, despite performances clearly dropping off. And I think people were starting to maybe accept that, okay, we're leveling out to possibly a playoff side. Maybe we'll slip even further. Question marks around the attack, creativity. It's best 11. We seem no closer to answering a lot of them questions. Could this be a blessing in disguise now? Because as Rob mentioned, Chris, there's a fire now being lit under Steve Gibson. He's going to want to absolutely go for it with this next appointment. And what a position. The only thing I will credit Rob Edwards for is at least he's left us while we were third, now second. He's not left us when we were mid-table. This could possibly be the best the Boro job's ever looked. Because let's be honest, normally when Steve Gibson is hiring for a manager, it's because something's gone desperately wrong with the previous guy. And, they got to come into a team that's in the bottom half, mid-table, underachieving. Fans aren't happy. They've got to try and pick up the pieces. I don't ever recall, and I don't think we'll see it for a very long time, someone coming into Boro while they're second in the championship with such good foundations. So I guess off the back of Rob's question to you, as well as just Steve Gibson, I mean, it's got to be the best the Boro job's ever looked, isn't it?
Yeah, because going back to Rob's question first, I think, it is quite difficult for fans, isn't it? I guess it's kind of like if you're in the situation where your ex had cheated on you and you go into the next relationship. I can imagine you're second guessing a lot of things, aren't you? I mean, if we get a new manager in, they're doing fantastic. We're neck and neck with Coventry, second half of the season, and then I don't know, Leeds sack the manager for argument's sake, and then there's rumours of Leeds to take the manager, and then the new manager gets asked in the press conference, "Oh, so you linked the Leeds job?" He doesn't give a satisfactory answer. That PTSD just kicks in, overdrive, and then you're overthinking and imagining scenarios which probably aren't even happening. So I can imagine that is how it's going to feel for a lot of Boro fans because, as I said, there was a lot of fans who, even until the point where the press conference was happening, they thought anyone suggested he was going to Wolves was a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist who was just making stuff up to suit the narrative because they fully bought into it. And I don't blame them. I blame him for the lies he was, or the absolute spiel he was feeding them. So yeah, it could be difficult for the fans to take the next manager. I hope it isn't. It's one of those where winning football matches always helps that, doesn't it? But it Wilder left emotional scars for a lot of fans, and I can't see why the next one would be any different. If you're looking at it, he has left us in a great position though. Unless we were a Premier League club, because if you're a Premier League club, you tend to get people who just want to manage it because you're a Premier League club. We are in a situation where second in the league, in the summer, it wasn't really the most enticing job, was it? There was talk of having to sell our best players to buy. There's a little bit of truth in that, like some of Zaz went out the door. Fans weren't really particularly happy with her. The Carrick situation dragged its feet. A lot of fans are saying mid-table. I mean, I think I was down for 8th. Some fans had us down for battling relegation. It was there wasn't really any optimism whatsoever on Tayside, and a lot of them, I could forgive a lot of managers for looking at that job going, "Nah, I'll tell you what, it doesn't really look enticing that." But you look at the situation now, and you're second in the league. The championship, I thought this would be a really strong championship. I didn't expect, we think one of the relegated sides might defecate the bed, but all three of them at the start did, didn't they? And you think, looking at it, think Ipswich. I've always felt Ipswich would come good, and I think they are starting to come good now. This is a wide open championship. This is so wide open. I never ever imagined it'd be like this. So you're looking now, look at a new manager thinking, hang on a minute, we're going into not far from the Christmas period. You go there, have a good Christmas. The fixtures are looking pretty good. January comes, Melander's coming in. Gibson's going to spend some money. He has to in the attacking third of the pitch. This is a great opportunity for someone, and I'm sure we'll have no shortage of applicants. And when we look back over the last sort of month of games, the only real positive I can put in the pros column was that the league position, second in the league, because everything else wasn't looking great. Some of the football has been awful. I've said online, but I was starting to question some of Edwards' decisions because it was quite clear that he didn't have a clue what his best team was. He didn't have a clue what his best formation was. And people tell me, oh, well, it's only the start of the season. It's too early. No, it isn't. It's 30% of the way into the season. We're not far from halfway through, and he still didn't have any idea what he was doing. In that sense, defensively, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I can't fault him for that. We were very difficult to break down. It kept us in games, but the games always felt knife edge, like it was a coin toss. And we'd come up right at the start of the season, but you could see that we were, especially in the final third, it wasn't. In fact, I think something that Matt said earlier, it was getting worse in the final third. It wasn't getting better. And it felt like we were starting to lose those coin tosses in those narrow games. So, yeah, I think he's potentially done us a favour that he didn't have a clue what he was doing in the final third of the pitch. And let's say this is a chance now for someone who maybe didn't fancy the job in the summer to look at it now and go, oh, hang on a minute, actually, this could be something special. And you have a strong second half of the season. All of a sudden, you're a Premier League manager. You know, if you're a manager who isn't going to get a Premier League job, or you want an opportunity, this is the best chance you're going to get because Lampard isn't leaving. Well, unless Chelsea, I suppose, wanted to appoint him for the third time, Lampard's not leaving Coventry, is he? So this is the best chance you're going to get. So yeah, I think we could get some really decent candidates.
Yeah, it's the best the Boro job's probably going to look for a very long time. And I guess that leads us on to the very intriguing debate of, well, who and what do we go for next? Because we all know the Gibson archetype is British managers out of work. He doesn't like paying compensation. Does he at this point, as Rob alluded to, has he got that fire that he just wants to find the best manager available? Or is he going to stick to his usual principles? Because, it might look a little hypocritical if we're going after Wolves for poaching our manager, if we then go and poach someone else's manager. So does he play it safe? Does he stick with the norm? Does he go for something a little bit different? And what would be best for us? If you look at the pool of managers, I'm not going to lie, I'm not exactly brimming with excitement at the moment. Gary O'Neill's up there, and I'm looking at Odds Checker because they compile the odds of numerous different bookmakers. Obviously, bookmakers, it's just on where the money goes. They don't have any real inside info as such. But Gary O'Neill is up there, odds on. Steven Gerrard seems to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter, which is interesting. Carlos Corberan, he's up there, obviously still at Valencia, might not be getting sacked. Brendan Rodgers, fresh off Celtic, is up there. You got Gareth Southgate as well. Who knows? Raphael Wickey's a name that won't go away. I mean, there is a ton of names in that list. Some are realistic, some aren't. Starting with you, Rob, I mean, what sort of manager do you think we need? What sort of manager do you think we're going to get? And of that list, does any stand out to you as potential candidates right now? It's such a tough one, isn't it?
I know exactly what you mean about the list of candidates on the betting odds and how I've heard that a lot from fans saying, there isn't necessarily one that really jumps out and go, this is the overwhelming person to lead Boro forward. I think we can rule out anybody who's currently in a job. I think you're right there. I think we can rule out Gareth Southgate. Sorry to all the people who want Southgate back. I just, hearing his interview last week, was it? We played it out on the show. It didn't smack to me as somebody who is desperate to get into football management. Other areas of football and performance management and all that sort of stuff, maybe. But I think Gareth Southgate is very unlikely to be the next Middlesbrough manager. Gary O'Neill, I think if he hadn't have said what he said and didn't love golf and didn't like having a weekend off over Christmas, I think that would be the one.
Right.
But the
I agree.
thorn in the paw is those comments that he made, and I do wonder if he regrets making them, because he didn't go to Wolves because he says the timing wasn't right, maybe the environment and things weren't quite right there. So, look, he clearly wants to get back into football because he was having conversations with Wolves. He's clearly ready to get back into football. I think everybody around football, either from a media standpoint or, players, current, past and present, all speak very highly of him as a coach. The one thing is, if you're Middlesbrough and you appoint Gary O'Neill, do you feel you can turn that tide of those who feel wronged by him, rightly or wrongly, whichever side of the fence you're on? And there'll be some who say, it was a long time ago. He want him to be the one to lead us to the Premier League. He's got former Boro ties and those sorts of things. Currently out of a job, ticks a lot of boxes, plays decent football, knows his stuff as a coach, all that. And there'll be others who say, I can categorically not forgive him for what he did and how he boasted about it on podcasts.
For those who don't know,
Yeah, go on.
Middlesbrough were fighting relegation. I'm sure
Yeah.
he was the captain at the time as well, and he admitted when we played Bolton Wanderers, he was on 9 yellow cards, and he knew if he got another yellow card, he'd be suspended for the next game. So he admitted to saying, if I just get a yellow card, I could sit at home next weekend with my mates and watch the Masters. So he deliberately got a yellow card, so he missed the next game. He could sit at home watching golf.
So, question to you both. Could you forgive him that? If he was the one to lead Boro forward, and if they appointed him, regardless of if that was the decision and it was made, and they came out and he says, "Oh, look, I was young then," or maybe he wasn't that young when he was at Boro, but I made a mistake, whatever. Could you forgive him that?
I agree with you that if it wasn't for those comments, ex-Middlesbrough player, Premier League experience, done decent jobs where he's been, I think he would be odds on, an absolute shoo-in to be the next manager. If he was appointed, to be honest, I'd get over it, because as much as I don't like those comments and didn't particularly like him as a player, he's the manager of your football. He'd be the manager of your football club, isn't it? So you just have to get behind him. And when I look at the list of other candidates, unfortunately, I don't see many good ones on that list, or many that I personally would like. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Where does Steve Gibson appoint him, knowing that there is going to be a sizable backlash, that there's a lot of fans who won't forgive him? Yeah, really, really interesting one. Because like I said, I think he'd be an absolute shoo-in. I think he'd be an absolute shoo-in if he wasn't. And I saw him on Monday Night Football. It was last season before. I think he spoke. I was quite impressed with him when he was on there. He seemed to know his stuff. It is a shame about those comments, because I have no doubt he does regret them now, because I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't for those comments, sometime next week he'd be holding the bow scarf over his head. Maybe not the Brian Robson half and half suit and shorts thing, but yeah, I don't know.
We need to bring that back. What about you, Matt? What would you think?
Yeah, I would get over it. I would. I'm not the sort of person who likes to hold a grudge. So I think you would, after a short period of time, fans would have a moan. But if he went and won his first 4 games, no one would give a crap, would they? Let's be honest. No. However, I think he would be the sort of manager you'd be best to bring in if it was the start of the season. Boro maybe mid-table, maybe expected to be fighting for the playoffs. It's a fresh start. You don't know what you're going to get. I think maybe if it's more of an open book, you can accept it. Right now, though, absolutely not, because as we've alluded to with fans who are scarred and are hurting, they want a manager who I think who's going to come in and someone they can trust, someone who is going to be likable. Just I don't know what we're going to. I don't know what we could possibly get or what the new guy could say to sort of appease the fan base at the moment, because we are just sort of scarred by it. But I just think bringing in a manager right now who already has there's already issues there with Boro fans, as fickle as they may be. I just don't think now is the time to do that at all, especially when, as we've said, the foundations right now are there. The fans are behind the club. We're more united than ever. We're in a great position. I just don't think you risk throwing a spanner in the works with someone like Gary O'Neill. And I guess on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, if he wins his first 4, great. If he loses his first 4, he has not got any credit in the bank with Boro fans, and I think they could turn on him more quickly if things didn't go well. So yeah, I think if it was the start of the season, a summer where it felt like a fresh new start for Boro, a bit of a rebuild, then yeah, you can take that risk. But right now, I don't think so. But I agree. He ticks every box, doesn't he?
Yeah,
every single box.
It's such a shame, isn't it?
British
It's a shame. It is. It's a real shame. I think the one thing, I think Boro will take their time with it. I think in Adi Vivash, they've got somebody who clearly they appreciate a lot. They understand his stance on the way things of the events of the last week or so. I think he's a very good coach. By all accounts, he, ask him about anything sort of like mundane day to day, and he won't have much for you. Ask him about football, and ask him about his coaching methods, and ask him about how he sets up his sessions, and he is in his element. He's like a kid in a sandbox, just just as happy as anything. So I think Boro have a steady pair of hands for the meantime that will buy them time. Obviously, the international break helps as well, and I wouldn't discount a sort of left field appointment to a degree, whether that be Raphael Wiki, who's done good things, and I know people will say it, but it's in the Swiss League, Rob, and it's with young boys and that sort of thing, and that won't translate to the Championship. There is that as well. That would be more of a gamble, but we've seen that in the past, haven't we? That Steve Gibson doesn't always go for the option that everybody thinks, and sometimes he will sort of deviate from the path and go a little bit off centre.
Carrick was an example, you could argue.
Yeah, exactly. Aitor Karanka was, as well. So, yeah, it's fascinating to see where Boro go from here. The other thing as well, that if they do take their time, as sort of understood that they're not going to rush into it, partly because this is not something they were expecting to happen. You always hear that thing of people saying like, clubs should always have like a number of managers lined up should anything happen. But Boro were sold on Rob Edwards. They thought that Rob Edwards was sold on Boro. So that they weren't, looking at other options. That has now changed. They are looking for a new manager. And it is going to be fascinating. In buying themselves some time, it also buys them some time for other options that aren't currently available to become available, whether that is, I don't know, Daniel Farker at Leeds, for example, or whether it is Carlos Corberan, who is managing in La Liga with Valencia. I think they've got one win in their last 8 or something like that. I was looking earlier. So yeah, it's an open. It's completely open. I'd be surprised in a way if it was Steven Gerrard. I know one of the reasons why I didn't take the Rangers job was...
I was waiting for that.
One of the reasons why he turned Rangers down was he's saying his family still live in Bahrain, which is much further away than Wolverhampton is. So there's that to take into account. And I don't think... I mean, I don't know. I'd be interested to see how that went down with Boro fans, given what was, how sort of the Carrick thing played out. The one thing I will say is, like, selfishly, from a broadcaster's point of view, just want somebody who is open to a conversation and is happy to answer, questions and will be, I say, open and honest, granted as to what's just happened, but is personable and speaks isn't afraid to give an opinion on things and doesn't sit on the fence about absolutely everything. Like, oh, look, the sky's blue. Is it blue or could it be grey? Sometimes it's grey and sometimes it's blue. No, but today it's blue. No, but is it blue? There's a bit of white cloud over there. It's like, don't be afraid to give your opinion. I think fans value that more so than anything. And as always, I always say it and I repeat it a lot. And I'm sure people have probably heard me say it before, but the one thing fans hate more than anything, and I know because I'm a fan too, and I sit in the chair over there and listen to fans every almost day of the week when they get in touch with us, is that the one thing that will turn fans off more than anything is when a manager comes out and says the game that they have paid money to watch is different to the one that they have seen, and that the manager is talking about. So, yeah, I think that is a huge part of it, especially with this fan base and especially with this football club. You want somebody who can communicate to the fan base adequately, and I think that will be a huge part of whatever direction Boro go in moving forward, especially considering what has happened. They're going to need somebody to be able to verbalise the situation and potentially, as we've spoken about, potentially get fans back on side who now all of a sudden maybe feel a little bit enamoured with the idea of a new manager and building that trust again.
It's interesting, isn't it? Chris,
Mm-hmm.
Before you exclaim how much you want Steven Gerrard to be in the job, what's your thoughts of the what are your thoughts on the list of at least rumoured managers? There's every chance one could come out of the blue, of course, but it's not the most exciting of lists. Is that safe to say? What do you think about it?
I think it's one of those lists where it's easier for fans to say who they don't want than who they want.
Yeah.
I guess Steven Gerrard.
But you haven't mentioned it.
Yeah, looking for there's very little there that grabs you, isn't there?
If you had to right now with the options available, what would be your pick?
Can I have Corporate or is he classed as not available?
Your choice.
I wouldn't mind Carlos Corporate. I think he'd be a solid pick. Other than that, like the options are just so poor. The ones I think are realistic anyway. There's a lot of left field appointments, broad appointments who I have no idea how they play, what they're like, etc. So I can't really comment on those. Of the ones that I know, there's not a lot there at all that gets me excited. Like I said, and that's why, going back to your question about Gary O'Neill, that's why even with his comments, I'm still thinking, what we probably
forgive you, Gary.
We probably should, because I'm just looking at it thinking, do I want him or do I want Wayne Rooney or Will Still or Sam Allardyce? Well,
Sam Allardyce is the one that caught my eye at 40-1.
Well, the one that caught my eye is your former Booty Tees sport colleague, Craig Hignett, 66-1.
Hey, I tell you what, they could do a lot worse than Craig Hignett. The other one is it was Dave Challoner, the former Hartlepool manager, who I cheekily dropped him a text earlier in the week and went, Boro job's available, Dave, and he just sent me back a laughing emoji, and that was all I got from him. But
interesting.
I mean, look. Again, I don't think Boro will appoint anybody who's in a job. That's sort of been a line that Steve Gibson has been hesitant to cross in the past, and especially considering what's happened, I would be surprised to see that. There is a small part of me that thinks Dave Challoner would be brilliant at Middlesbrough, having seen up close what he did at Hartlepool. And I know there'll be people now screaming at the computer going, but it's different, Rob, this is a championship and we're a bigger club, and all those things are also true. But he's a fantastic man manager. And what was it, like four promotions in 5 seasons as well on his CV. But I don't think it'll happen. I'm just talking about it because I like the guy. But yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what, look at this list. I'd happily give him a spin because, again, I think he's
away off yet. Yeah.
Nicky Featherstone's on there.
Oh,
Anthony Lumbrick's on there.
There's a few. I did say left field appointment, but maybe not that left field.
Yeah. So honestly, the way it's looking at, I'm thinking, yeah, there's one or two I might have. Obviously, a left field one, someone I've never heard of, someone I know preconceptions about. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Other than that, I'm thinking just give it to Eddie Varvash or just stick a rookie in and then put Varvash alongside him. It's just, unless someone becomes available who gets my interest, then that list there, and we know that's only the bookies list. That isn't going to be Middlesbrough's actual list, but the list that the bookies are currently providing does not inspire me whatsoever, personally.
I guess the big positive is that we're all pretty happy that AD can just take the reins, and if it takes a bit longer, it takes a bit longer. If he's in charge for Oxford, he's in charge. If he's in charge of Coventry, the narrative writes itself. You never know. There's not many people who know Cov better than AD Viviash. So if he is to take the job for a few more games, I don't care. I don't mind. And if it means we wait and get the right man, then I'm absolutely all for that as well. I agree. I can't see Gibson paying out for a manager, especially given the fact that we're currently, having a bit of a ding dong with Wolves because of that. It's not within Gibson's nature. I don't think morally he likes to do that, if I'm honest. I think it's just something he doesn't believe in. I don't think, though, we're going to be limited to just British managers. I do believe Kieran Scott will be going in with a complete open mind, and we'll be trying to, open Gibson's minds up to maybe managers he's not heard of. So, yeah, looking at the list for me, I think if Carlos Corberán becomes available, I think you absolutely pick up the phone and contact Carlos Corberán, because obviously the new manager has to, I guess, not their philosophy and style of play can't be too far away from what we currently are doing now, because I just don't think you want that disruption. I don't want a new manager to come in, there's a clunky transition to a different style of play, and we drop to 7th or 8th and then start to find our feet. If we can kick on from second, get a new manager bounce in second place, I mean, my God knows where that might, leave us. So we need someone who's going to come in and just take what we've got and literally pick it up from there and can have that continuity. Obviously, someone who fits in with the club's hierarchy, head coach, not a manager, and is willing to work with AD. So I think if one of Daniel Farker or Carlos Corberán became available, I would very much like us to go for one of them. I'm gutted Liam Rossinia's not open, because I think, although there might be a bit of a difference in play style, I think he's a good manager. Same with Matt Robbins, but obviously doing well at Stoke, and we don't know what the relationship is like between him and him and Eddie Viviash anymore. Chris might be best covering his ears with this. As the days have gone by, and I'm not championing this at all. I really am not, because I don't have an opinion on the guy. I have convinced myself it'll be Steven Gerrard. I've convinced myself, and I don't know why. Again, if it wasn't for Gary O'Neill, he'd take him out the equation. If Boro approached Steven Gerrard and sell him the job enough, I think they could convince him to come over. I think Gibson might be looking at what Lampard's doing at Cov and think, okay, he wasn't particularly, when they took Robbins out and replaced him with Lampard, people were thinking, what the hell is the Coventry owner doing? And look what's happened. Former player, big name, will get a lot of attention. He probably galvanised the squad. They'll look up to him. It's Steven Gerrard. He's British. He's out of work. He's even said in recent interviews and podcasts he wants to work with a new team. I'm just seeing so many little things popping up that are making me go, the stars are aligning, and that's what's going to happen. And I can feel Chris already getting ready to throw his digital season card in the middies.
What you can't see is out of screen is Chris has a stress ball in his hand that he's just like absolutely raging at.
You're trying to tease a Steven Gerrard rant out of me, aren't you?
Honestly, I'm not. It's based on absolutely nothing. The odds just keep getting shorter, and I'm seeing interviews and quotes he said here and the Gibson archetype, and I just think if he wants it, and if he expresses that he wants it and he would be willing to move. I know obviously he didn't go back to Rangers, I get that, but there's something telling me Steven Gerrard's Middlesbrough. I'm sorry to say, Chris.
I just think with Gerrard, what has he done in management? Let's be honest, right? He won the SPL. He's got an SPL winners medal. If either of you pulled out your 100-meter swimming certificate, I'd be equally impressed with that.
Hey, I've got a 1500-meter swimming certificate if you want to see it.
You know what I mean? Only 2 teams have won the SPL in my lifetime. So you take one of those jobs, Celtic or Rangers, you're either first or second, unless you're Russell Martin.
Let's not want him up, but I would definitely
yeah.
be lobbing my season ticket if
So
Dearie
it's
me.
either success or failure, whether you're first or second. Gerrard failed 2 seasons out of 3. He only won one of them. He didn't win any Scottish Cups, didn't win any Scottish League Cups, didn't win any Europa Leagues. Just one SPL title in 3 seasons. Neil Lennon has 5. Alex McLeish and Gordon Strachan have 3. Does anybody want either of those 3? No. They only want Gerrard because his name is Steven Gerrard. He took over Villa in 16th, left them in 17th. Unai Emery came, took over, and took the same group of players up to 7th. So it wasn't the players, it was the manager. He's gone to Saudi, which is a massive red flag in itself, done absolutely nothing. So at least with Lampard, he was willing to drop down to Derby, he went to Chelsea, and he went to Everton, he dropped back down after the second stint at Chelsea. He's willing to drop in the Championship. Gerrard just went and took the money over in Saudi, so I just don't. I know you're not advocating for him. I know you're saying, but you said you can feel it happening. But I just don't get why anyone wants Steven Gerrard. If his name was Joe Bloggs and you put forward his CV, people would laugh in your face for suggesting Steven Gerrard. It's a name, and could you imagine every week
The media.
Frank Lampard's Coventry versus
yeah.
Steven Gerrard's Middlesbrough. And every single match day, you have to hear that Denver Bar song. Oh, it'll be hell on earth. No, thank you.
As long as he never comes out in a press conference and says, we're never going to let this slip.
Oh, God.
That would be the...
Cue Chris getting a picture outside the Riverside in December with Steven Gerrard. I can't wait.
Gerrard on the back of his shirt. Like...
Always wanted you, Stephen.
Always said you'd be a great appointment.
It'll be interesting.
Tax bill's going to run him out.
Yeah.
It is fascinating. It's fascinating to see where it goes from here because, as you both alluded to, I think in terms of a style of play that's close to what they already, how they already operate, the perspective of a new manager bounce, the threat of not hitting the ground running, and what that could mean for Boro's playoff ambitions. It is. As much as the job is as attractive as it's probably been in a long, long time, it is also a decision, probably the biggest decision that Boro's hierarchy have had to make in a long, long time as well. And hence why I don't think they'll be rushing to make it. I think they'll take their time with it. They'll trust in Eddie Vivash going forward. I think they've been very impressed with him sort of internally in the way that he's dealt with things specifically in the last week or so. And his name in football is, everybody talks about Eddie Vivash. You only have to look at what the Coventry fans were saying just at the weekend after hearing him speak and people saying, we miss Eddie Vivash at Coventry and this, that and the other. He's a man who's really well thought of in the world of football, a good football coach. And I don't think Boro could want for a better person to steer them in the interim, to give the hierarchy the time that they would want, I'm sure, to make sure that they make the right decision, because it is a huge decision. Whatever they do next, it's going to be massive.
Yeah, agree completely. Before we finish by me and Chris putting our, and we'll see if we can squeeze a couple of predictions out of Rob as well. Before we look ahead to the next group of games, quickly then. Before we move on, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell me what's going to happen and who's going to be the Boro manager.
I'm BBC. I'm not allowed to give an opinion.
No. Get off that fence.
I'm joking. I'll let Chris go first because then it can buy me some time to actually think.
Thanks,
get
mate.
the crystal ball out, Chris. What's going to happen?
I genuinely have no idea. Loads of people have asked me over the last few days. I genuinely have no idea who's going to be the next manager. I think it'll be a left field appointment. Raphael Wiki or something like that.
Name won't go away.
I think it's someone like that who's going to be left field, who fans don't have any preconceptions about, who people don't hate because he's played for this club or that club, or he said this thing previously. I think it's going to be someone left field.
We've got it sorted. Got it sorted, lads. It's going to be Jesse March. And I'm joking. It's most definitely not. He's 40-1. I've just looked. He's below Michael Carrick. Would you believe, making a sensational return?
This is Rob Stalling, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I am gonna controversial. I don't think it'll be Brendan Rodgers. I think he will be in line to take over Leeds when and if that happens. I think if Leeds do get rid of Daniel Farke, then that might be of interest to Middlesbrough going forward. Granted, though, Daniel Farke is still in a job, so I think it's going to be Gary O'Neill. It's based on nothing. I should say that because people might think, "Oh, Rob might know what's going on," and I'm going to go and bet my mortgage on Gary O'Neill. Don't bet your mortgage on Gary O'Neill, please. Don't.
It's 10-3 now. There's no point. There's no decent odds in that.
I don't know why. I don't know. I agree with you, Chris. I think out of all the options on that list, despite what has been said in the past, that is probably the main sticking point. If Boro feel they can work past that in some way, shape, or form, then he ticks so many boxes apart from what he said. So, controversial, but I'll go with Gary O'Neill based on nothing, no intel, no sources, no Rob Law understands or anything like that. Just
the force.
The force of Rob, not Edwards, Law.
Legally changes his name tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm gonna say, and I'm not gonna say Gerard, Chris. Don't worry. That was, that's just an inkling. I'm gonna also put a bit of what I hope happens into what I think will happen. I think we'll keep Ed Vivesh for the foreseeable. Maybe we'll sound out a couple of in-work managers who might not be in work so very soon. So we're waiting for them to maybe leave. I think we'll wait a few games. I think once Corberan will be out of a job, and I think we'll get Carlos Corberan.
I think that's a good shout. In terms of AD taking the, kind of biding the time, and then by that point, Carlos Corberan may be available.
AD beats Coventry and hands over the reins. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
What a position to be in.
That's what I think will happen. I think if he's not sacked before the end of the break, I think it'll come shortly, and maybe they can speak to maybe this is them being a complete hypocrites with given what's happened to Wolves, but maybe Boro can ask would Carlos be interested, and if he is going to eventually leave soon, maybe that'll be lined up. We'll have to wait and see. But if he's who I wanted before Carrick, so I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
So the next podcast me and Chris are hoping to do is going to be between the 20th and basically between the 20th of December and Christmas. So the next block of games, we are going to predict Boro's next, I think it's 7 games. So we're going to try and come back before Boxing Day, which means the last game is going to be Bristol City. Last time we predicted every single result identical, and I stress once again, we do not chat or share predictions, and if we somehow predict the same 7 results again, then there's something going on. So
okay.
The next 7 games, Chris, we've got Oxford away, Cov and Derby at home, then back-to-back trips, Hull and Charlton before QPR at home, and then we go to one of the worst grounds for Boro, Ashton Gate, on the 20th of December. What are your predictions, and how many points are Boro going to get from the next 7?
So Oxford away, I've got this one. So I've got us down for 3 points there, but I mean that one, they're in dire form. Coventry at home, really tough, isn't it? Really, really tough, that one. I've got us down for a point for that one.
Okay.
Derby at home, got us there for 3 points, going for the win. Yes, Smart. I think we'll be. I think we're the same so far.
I'm not saying a word.
Hull away. I've got my tickets today for this one. A tricky team, Hull. They're either brilliant or rubbish, aren't they? I've got to take us for a point in that one. Charlton away. I've got us down for 3 points. QPR at home. I've got us winning. And as you teased in your intro there, we are rubbish at Bristol City. So I've got us losing at Bristol City, which has us down for 14 points, which is crucially 2 points a game.
Ooh.
2 points a game. I'm going to be honest, Chris, you had me worried. You had me genuinely worried that we were going to snap again midway through that prediction. But there is one result of this 7 that is different. We've gone 6 of 7. I've gone for a win.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say 6-7. All the kids are saying that these days.
Yeah. Let's not do that. I'm old. I haven't a clue what that means. I've gone for a win at Oxford. I'll be there as well. I went for a draw against Coventry as well. I just can't take us losing, but I just don't think we'll beat them. So I think we'll draw. Yep, beat Derby at home. I agree. They're going well though, Derby at the minute, so that might be tougher than it seems by then. I have gone for a draw away at Hull as well. At this point, I was starting to worry, Chris. I'm going to be honest. However, I have not gone for us to win at Charlton. I just think it's a midweek game away from home. They're an awkward side. Nathan Jones. I've gone for a draw against Charlton. However, then I did completely follow your last 2 and say we'll beat QPR at home. And yeah, it's Ashton Gate.
Yeah.
Not happening. So you've gone for 14 points. I've gone for 12. So we're different. We'll see how that plays out. Rob, can I put you on the? Are you heading to any of
absolutely.
These? Are you heading to any of these? And what's going to happen?
Yeah. TBC on that. I think potentially we'll be at the Oxford game. But for the next few games, I think I may be at the Hull game as well, depending. But Oxford win. I will say that, maybe controversially, I think Boro will beat Coventry. I think Eddie Vivash will still be in the dugout at that point, and I think it will be a Vivash masterclass against his former side. The headlines will write themselves, and songs will be sung about Eddie Vivash getting 3 points over Coventry at the Riverside. I think a win over Derby, and I know what you think. I'm not going to go for like a Boro clean sweep all the way through.
7.
7 wins from 7. As Alistair Brownlee used to say, every week it'll be 3-0 every single time.
7 out of 7 for Gary O'Neill's Reds.
Yeah. No, Steven Gerrard. Get it right, Chris. Come on. No, so I think a win against Oxford, win against Coventry, win against Derby. I think Hull are really difficult. I've seen them a couple of times this season working some of their games, and at home they're really, really strong. They've lost 1 at home all season. So I think if Boro get a point there, that will be a good point. I think that will be followed up by a Charlton midweek.
Awkward in December as well.
Yeah, it is. I will go with a point against Charlton midweek, a win against QPR, and a point at Ashton Gate.
Wow, I wasn't counting, unfortunately.
Sorry,
but I think you've predicted the higher of the.
Have I?
Yeah.
People are going to just think I'm sitting on the fence now. Shall I say we lose at Hull, and that might balance it out a bit?
No, that's it. No.
We're going optimistic, mate. We're going optimistic.
A 7-game unbeaten run.
If we're not top of the league by Christmas, then there's a problem there, isn't there? If that's what.
Absolutely.
But that has been an absolute blast, Rob. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been amazing to get you on as a fan, but as a broadcaster as well. And we absolutely will definitely get you on again. Thanks a lot for joining us. I know it's been a long one and it's late, so I appreciate your time massively. Same for you, Chris. Even though we've wound you up over Steven Gerrard, thanks for jumping on and joining me as always. And we will be back to do this once again between the 20th and 26th, hopefully. So back at December, unless anything changes. There'll probably be a lot of change between now and then. We'll obviously keep you updated on there'll probably be a podcast on New Manager as well as there'll be loads of content on this very channel as well. We'll put links in the description to Rob's socials, and of course, if you somehow have lived under a rock and you've not checked them out on BBC Radio Tees, please do. And of course, our new viral superstar in the corner there, Chris, is on social media as well, gaining a follower a minute at the moment. So that's definitely the social media profile to follow if you haven't already. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. Like the video on YouTube. rate it on your podcast provider, subscribe to the channel, and leave us comments on all things discussed in the comment section below. And we'll see you all in the next one.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.